there comes a moment, usually quietly and without announcement, when you realize that the future is no longer infinitely elastic. The body feels a little less forgiving than it once did. Recovery takes longer. Energy is more easily depleted. And you begin to wonder, perhaps for the first time, what the coming decades will actually feel like. This is not a dramatic crisis. It is simply the normal recognition that time is moving, and the body is moving with it. But what if most of what you have been told about this process is incomplete? What if the difference between a slow decline and sustained vitality has less to do with genetics or luck, and more to do with a small set of daily choices that most people overlook entirely? There is a way of understanding aging that shifts it from something that happens to you to something you participate in. And it begins not with a prescription, but with a different way of seeing. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The architecture of longevity. Understanding how small daily choices shape the years ahead. There is a question that becomes more interesting with each passing year. It is not the question of how to live forever, because that is not a question grounded in reality. It is the question of how to live well for as long as life continues. How to maintain clarity of mind, steadiness of body, and a sense of engagement with the world, even as the decades accumulate. This question has occupied thoughtful people across cultures and centuries. And in recent decades, it has also become a subject of serious scientific inquiry. What researchers have found is both simpler and more subtle than anyone expected. The duration and quality of human life are not determined by a single factor, not by genetics alone, not by any miracle food, not by any particular medical intervention. Instead, longevity emerges from a pattern of small, consistent choices that interact with one another over time. It is an architecture built from many small decisions, each one unremarkable in isolation, but together forming something substantial and durable. This understanding is actually quite liberating. It means that significant changes do not require dramatic overhauls or extraordinary efforts. They require attention to the fundamentals, day after day, year after year. They require understanding a few key principles and then allowing those principles to guide ordinary choices. The goal of this extended reflection is to explore those principles in depth, to understand why they matter, and to consider how they might be woven into the fabric of daily life in ways that feel natural rather than forced. The nature of aging as cumulative process. Before considering what might slow or modify the aging process, it helps to understand what aging actually is at a basic level. This is not about complex biochemistry or molecular biology. It is about grasping a simple idea. Aging is what happens when repair processes cannot quite keep up with damage processes. Every day, the human body experiences countless small injuries. Cells are exposed to unstable molecules that can alter their structure. Metabolic processes generate waste products that must be cleared away. Environmental factors introduce compounds that the body must neutralize. And the body has sophisticated systems for dealing with all of this. Repair crews are constantly at work, fixing damaged DNA, recycling worn-out proteins, clearing debris from between cells. For decades, these systems maintain remarkable order, but they do not maintain it perfectly forever. Gradually, over many years, unrepaired damage accumulates. A few cells here, a bit of stiffness there, some sluggishness in a particular system. None of these changes, by themselves, would be noticeable, but multiplied across decades and across millions of cells, they eventually manifest as what we recognize as aging. The process is not dramatic. It is simply the gradual drift away from optimal function that occurs when maintenance lags slightly behind wear. This understanding points toward a sensible strategy. If aging is about the accumulation of damage, then longevity is about supporting the body's repair systems and reducing unnecessary damage. It is not about stopping time, which is impossible. It is about maintaining good function for as long as possible by giving the body what it needs to do its maintenance work effectively. The practical implications of this view are encouraging. Small improvements in daily habits can shift the balance slightly in favor of repair over damage. And because these effects are cumulative, even modest changes can produce meaningful outcomes over years and decades. The person who eats well, moves regularly, and manages stress effectively is not doing something magical. They are simply giving their maintenance crews better working conditions. The first pillar, movement as signal, not exhaustion. When people think about physical activity and longevity, they often imagine vigorous exercise, gym memberships, and pushing through discomfort. This picture keeps many people from moving more because it seems demanding and unpleasant. But research into the oldest and healthiest populations around the world suggests a different relationship with movement. In regions that researchers have identified as having unusually high concentrations of healthy older adults, people do not generally exercise in the structured way that modern fitness culture recommends. They do not go to gyms. They do not follow workout videos. They simply live in bodies that are used throughout the day. They walk to visit neighbors. They tend gardens. They perform their own housework and repairs. They walk upstairs because there is no elevator. Movement is woven into the fabric of ordinary life, not separated into dedicated sessions. This distinction matters because it affects how movement feels and whether it continues over decades. Structured exercise that feels like a chore is difficult to maintain. Movement that is simply part of how one lives requires no special motivation. It is just what one does. And because it happens regularly throughout the day, it provides constant gentle signals to the body that it needs to maintain its capacity. The body responds to these signals in predictable ways. Bones remain denser when they regularly bear weight. Muscles retain more fibers when they are regularly called upon. Balance systems stay calibrated when they are regularly challenged. Joints maintain their range of motion when they are regularly moved through that range. None of this requires extreme effort. It requires consistency. There is also an important distinction between movement that builds capacity and movement that exhausts capacity. The goal for longevity is not to push so hard that recovery becomes difficult. It is to stimulate the body enough that it maintains its systems, while leaving plenty of energy for repair and restoration. This is why the concept of moderate, regular movement appears so consistently in studies of healthy aging. It provides enough signal to maintain function without creating so much stress that it overwhelms repair capacity. For someone considering how to incorporate this principle, the question shifts from what kind of exercise program to follow, to how to make daily life more physically engaged. Can walks replace short car trips? Can stairs replace elevators? Can standing replace sitting during certain activities? Can gardening or household projects provide reasons to use the body? These small choices, multiplied across days and years, shape the body's trajectory as much as any structured program. The second pillar, metabolic stability and the energy continuum. The human body runs on energy derived from food, but the way it handles that energy has profound implications for long-term health. At the center of this is the concept of metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch smoothly between different fuel sources and to maintain stable energy levels throughout the day. When metabolic systems are working well, the body processes carbohydrates efficiently, stores energy appropriately, and releases it when needed. Blood sugar remains relatively stable, neither spiking too high after meals nor dropping too low between them. Energy is available when needed, but the body is not constantly demanding food. This smooth operation places less stress on the intricate systems that regulate metabolism. When metabolic systems become strained, the pattern changes. Blood sugar may spike sharply after meals, triggering large releases of insulin. Cells may become less responsive to insulin signals, requiring even more of the hormone to achieve the same effect. Energy may crash between meals, creating cravings for quick sources of fuel. Over time, this pattern can contribute to a range of changes that affect how well the body functions. What is interesting is that metabolic health is influenced heavily by the patterns of eating, not just by what is eaten. The timing of meals, the composition of meals, and the spacing between them all send signals to the body about how it should manage energy. Frequent eating, especially of foods that break down quickly into sugar, trains the body to expect constant fuel and reduces its ability to access stored energy between meals. Longer gaps between eating and meals that provide sustained energy train the body in the opposite direction. This is not about extreme dietary restrictions or complicated schedules. It is about giving the metabolic system regular opportunities to operate in different modes. When food is consistently available, the body never needs to access its stored energy. When there are predictable periods without food, overnight, between meals, the body learns to maintain stable function by drawing on reserves. Both modes are natural and healthy. Problems arise when one mode dominates completely. The composition of meals also matters for metabolic stability. Foods that break down slowly, those with fiber, protein, and natural fats, provide a gradual release of energy rather than a sudden surge. They keep blood sugar steadier and provide longer-lasting satiety. This does not mean eliminating foods that break down quickly. It means understanding their effects and balancing them within meals that also provide slower-burning fuel. For someone considering their own patterns, the question becomes whether their current eating schedule allows for periods of metabolic rest. Does the body have time between meals to access stored energy? Are meals composed in ways that provide steady fuel rather than sharp spikes and crashes? Small adjustments in these areas can shift metabolic trajectories over time. The third pillar, nutritional density and cellular support. Every cell in the body requires a steady supply of specific nutrients to function properly. Some of these nutrients provide energy. Others serve as structural components. Others act as signaling molecules or as assistants to enzymes that carry out essential reactions. When the diet provides these nutrients reliably, cells can perform their work efficiently. When the diet falls short in certain areas, cells must make do with less. And over time, function may decline. This sounds straightforward. But modern food environments have made it surprisingly easy to consume plenty of calories while still falling short on specific nutrients. Foods that have been heavily processed often retain the energy density of their original ingredients while losing much of the vitamin, mineral, and phytochemical content. It is possible to feel full while still being undernourished in ways that matter for long-term function. The concept of nutrient density helps clarify what to look for. Some foods provide a high concentration of beneficial compounds relative to their calorie content. Colorful vegetables, for example, deliver a wide range of vitamins and phytochemicals while containing relatively few calories. Berries of various types concentrate compounds that appear to support cellular function. Leafy greens provide minerals and vitamins along with fiber. These foods offer high returns for the calories they contain. Other foods provide calories with relatively little else. Refined grains, added sugars, and many processed snacks supply energy, but few of the supporting compounds that cells need. They can fit into a healthy diet in moderation. But when they crowd out more nutrient-dense options, the overall nutritional quality of the diet declines. The relationship between diet and longevity is not about any single superfood. It is about the overall pattern of nutritional intake. Diets that consistently provide a wide range of nutrients from diverse sources appear to support better long-term function than diets that rely heavily on any single category. This diversity ensures that the body has access to the many different compounds it needs for its various maintenance and repair processes. There is also growing recognition that compounds beyond traditional vitamins and minerals matter for health. Plants produce thousands of phytochemicals that are not essential in the same way that vitamins are, but that appear to support cellular function in beneficial ways. Many of these compounds have antioxidant or anti-inflammatory effects. Some appear to influence gene expression in ways that favor repair processes. Others support the health of blood vessels or nervous tissue. A diet rich in plant foods provides exposure to this diverse array of compounds in a way that supplements cannot easily replicate. For someone considering their own nutritional patterns, the question is not whether they are eating perfectly. It is whether their diet provides consistent access to nutrient-dense foods across the week. Are vegetables present at most meals? Are there sources of healthy fats? Does fruit appear regularly? Is there variety in the types of foods eaten? Small improvements in these areas, sustained over time, shift the nutritional foundation upon which cellular health depends. The fourth pillar, inflammatory balance and the immune system. Inflammation is one of those concepts that has entered popular discussion but is often misunderstood. It is not inherently bad. Acute inflammation is an essential part of the body's defense system, a carefully coordinated response to injury or infection that helps contain damage and initiate repair. Without it, minor cuts would become major infections, and routine illnesses would become life-threatening. The problem arises when inflammatory activity becomes chronic and widespread. When the body maintains a low-grade inflammatory state even in the absence of any clear threat. This persistent inflammation, sometimes called parainflammation, is different from the acute response. It is subtle enough that a person may not notice any symptoms, but it gradually affects tissues throughout the body. It can contribute to changes in blood vessels, in joint tissues, in metabolic regulation, and even in brain function over time. What drives this chronic inflammatory state is complex and varies between individuals. Sometimes it stems from metabolic factors, such as consistently high blood sugar or excess fat tissue that releases inflammatory signals. Sometimes it stems from environmental exposures or from chronic infections. Sometimes it relates to how the immune system has been trained over a lifetime, and sometimes it relates to diet, to the balance of compounds that either promote or calm inflammatory activity. Certain dietary patterns appear to support a more balanced inflammatory response. Diets rich in colorful plant foods provide compounds that help regulate inflammatory activity. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fish and some plant sources, support the production of molecules that resolve inflammation rather than prolonging it. Fiber supports a gut environment that influences immune function throughout the body. These dietary factors do not eliminate inflammation, but they help keep it appropriately regulated. Other factors besides diet influence inflammatory balance. Regular physical activity, at moderate intensities, appears to have anti-inflammatory effects. Adequate sleep is essential for proper immune regulation. Chronic stress, by contrast, can promote inflammatory activity through hormonal pathways. Social connection and a sense of purpose have also been linked to lower inflammatory markers in some studies, suggesting that emotional and social factors have biological consequences. For someone considering their own inflammatory balance, the goal is not to eliminate all inflammatory activity. That would be both impossible and dangerous. The goal is to avoid the kind of persistent, low-grade inflammation that gradually wears on tissues. This means paying attention to the factors that influence immune regulation, diet, activity, rest, stress, social connection, and creating conditions that favor balance rather than chronic activation. The fifth pillar, circadian rhythms and biological timing. Every cell in the human body contains an internal clock, a molecular mechanism that tracks time and coordinates activity with the external world. These cellular clocks are synchronized by a master clock in the brain, which uses light exposure to align internal time with the day-night cycle. The result is that nearly every physiological process follows a daily rhythm, with certain activities favored at certain times. These rhythms affect how the body handles food, how it regulates hormones, how it repairs tissues, and how it prepares for rest. Digestion and nutrient processing work differently at different times of day. Hormones like cortisol follow a predictable daily pattern. Cellular repair processes are more active during rest periods. Even the way the body responds to stress varies across the day. Modern life has made it increasingly easy to disrupt these natural rhythms. Artificial light extends the day well past sunset. Screens emit blue light that signals the brain to stay alert. Work and social activities can occur at any hour. Meals can be eaten at any time. The result is that many people live in a state of mild circadian disruption, where internal clocks are not fully synchronized with external time or with each other. The consequences of this disruption are subtle but widespread. Sleep quality suffers when the timing of rest does not align with the body's natural sleep window. Metabolic regulation becomes less efficient when food is consumed at times when digestive systems are not primed for it. Cellular repair processes may not operate at full capacity when rest is fragmented or mistimed. Over years, these small inefficiencies can accumulate. Supporting healthy circadian function does not require extreme measures. It involves paying attention to light exposure, particularly in the morning and evening. Morning light helps synchronize the master clock and supports better sleep later. Evening light, especially from screens, can delay the onset of sleep and reduce its quality. It involves trying to keep meal times relatively consistent, so that digestive systems know when to expect food. It involves protecting sleep by creating conditions that allow rest to occur naturally, for someone considering their own patterns. The question is whether daily routines work with biological rhythms or against them. Is there exposure to natural light during the day? Are evenings winding down rather than staying bright and stimulating? Is sleep allowed to happen when the body is ready for it? Small adjustments in timing can help restore the natural coordination that supports good function. The sixth pillar: cognitive engagement and neural plasticity. The human brain retains the ability to change throughout life, forming new connections and adapting to new circumstances. This capacity, known as neuroplasticity, is not as robust in later decades as it is in childhood, but it remains significant. The brain continues to respond to how it is used, maintaining pathways that are regularly activated and allowing others to fade when they fall into disuse. This has important implications for cognitive health over time. Activities that challenge the brain in varied ways encourage the maintenance of neural connections and may even support the formation of new ones. Activities that involve learning, problem solving, and adapting to new situations keep cognitive systems engaged. Activities that are routine and unchallenging provide less stimulation and may contribute to gradual decline in certain capacities. What counts as cognitive engagement varies between individuals. For someone who has worked with numbers their whole life, complex mathematical puzzles may be routine rather than challenging. For someone else, learning to navigate a new technology or understand a different perspective may provide significant stimulation. The key is that the activity requires some effort, some adaptation, some stretching beyond what is already comfortable. Social engagement appears to be particularly valuable for cognitive health. Conversations require rapid processing of verbal information, interpretation of social cues, and formulation of responses. Group activities require coordination and adaptation to others. Even simple social interactions provide cognitive stimulation that solitary activities may not match. This may be one reason why social connection consistently appears in studies of healthy aging. There is also evidence that combining physical and cognitive engagement provides particular benefits. Dancing, for example, requires both physical coordination and mental tracking of patterns and sequences. Playing a musical instrument integrates motor skills with auditory processing and memory. Activities that engage multiple systems simultaneously may provide richer stimulation than those that engage only one. For someone considering their own cognitive patterns, the question is whether daily life provides sufficient variety and challenge. Are there opportunities to learn new things? Are there social interactions that require attention and adaptation? Are there activities that combine different types of engagement? The goal is not to constantly push into difficult territory, but to maintain enough variety that neural systems remain active and responsive. The seventh pillar: social integration and relational health. Humans evolved as social creatures, living in groups where cooperation and connection were essential for survival. This evolutionary history has shaped physiology in ways that continue to matter. The presence of supportive social connections influences stress responses, immune function, and even cardiovascular regulation. Loneliness and social isolation, by contrast, are associated with a range of adverse health outcomes. The mechanisms linking social connection to physical health are increasingly understood. Supportive relationships can buffer the effects of stress, reducing the intensity and duration of stress responses. They provide practical assistance that makes daily life easier. They encourage health-promoting behaviors and discourage harmful ones. They give life meaning and structure, which itself appears to have biological consequences. What counts as meaningful social connection varies between individuals. For some, it is frequent contact with family members. For others, it is a network of friends who share interests. For others, it is involvement in community organizations or religious groups. The common element is the experience of being known and valued by others, of having people who can be called upon in times of need, of belonging to something larger than oneself. Social connections also change across the lifespan. Careers end, children leave home, friends move away, and spouses may die. Maintaining social integration in later decades often requires intentional effort, reaching out to form new connections as old ones fade. This can feel awkward or difficult, especially for those who are naturally reserved. But the evidence suggests that the effort is worthwhile, that social engagement supports health in ways that few other factors can match. There is also evidence that the quality of relationships matters more than the quantity. A few close, supportive connections provide more benefit than many superficial ones. Relationships characterized by trust, reciprocity, and emotional availability appear to have different physiological effects than those marked by conflict or ambivalence. Nurturing the quality of existing relationships may be as important as forming new ones. For someone considering their own social patterns, the question is whether they have the connections they need. Are there people with whom they can share both joys and difficulties? Do they have regular contact with others who know them well? Are they involved in activities that bring them into contact with others on a regular basis? Small efforts to maintain and deepen connections can yield significant returns over time. The eighth pillar: environmental exposures and cumulative load. The body exists in constant interaction with its environment, taking in air, water, food, and countless other substances through various routes. Most of these exposures are harmless or even beneficial, but some, particularly those that are novel in evolutionary terms, may add to the cumulative load that the body must manage. Modern environments contain substances that were rare or non-existent throughout most of human evolution. Industrial chemicals, air pollution, pesticides, and various synthetic compounds can enter the body and interact with its systems. The body has mechanisms for processing and eliminating many of these substances. But these mechanisms can be overwhelmed when exposures are high or when multiple substances interact. The concept of cumulative load helps make sense of how environmental factors affect health over time. No single exposure, by itself, may be enough to cause problems. But when many small exposures accumulate across decades, they may contribute to the gradual drift away from optimal function that characterizes aging. Reducing unnecessary exposures reduces this cumulative load and gives the body's systems less work to do. Some environmental factors are difficult for individuals to control. Air quality, for example, is largely determined by where one lives. But other factors are more within personal influence. The foods chosen, the products used in homes, the water consumed, all of these involve choices that affect exposure levels. Choosing whole foods over heavily processed ones reduces exposure to additives and preservatives. Choosing simpler personal care products reduces exposure to fragrances and other compounds. Filtering drinking water can reduce certain contaminants. There is also the question of indoor environments. Modern buildings are sealed more tightly than those of the past, which improves energy efficiency but can also concentrate indoor pollutants. Adequate ventilation, regular cleaning to reduce dust and mold, and careful selection of furnishings and finishes can all affect the quality of indoor air. Plants may help remove certain compounds, though their effects are modest compared to ventilation. For someone considering their own environmental exposures, the goal is not to eliminate all potentially harmful substances. That is neither possible nor necessary. The goal is to reduce unnecessary exposures where practical, to lighten the load that the body must process. Small changes in purchasing habits, in home maintenance, in daily routines can shift this balance over time. The ninth pillar, purpose and psychological orientation. Beyond all the physical factors that influence longevity, there is the question of why one wants to live well in the first place. A sense of purpose, of having reasons to get up in the morning, appears to matter for health in ways that researchers are still working to understand. Studies consistently find that people who report a strong sense of purpose tend to live longer and experience better health than those who do not. The mechanisms linking purpose to health are likely multiple. Purpose may encourage health-promoting behaviors, as people who feel their lives have meaning are more motivated to take care of themselves. Purpose may buffer stress, providing perspective that reduces the impact of daily difficulties. Purpose may influence physiological regulation through pathways that are not yet fully mapped. Whatever the mechanisms, the association is robust enough to warrant attention. Purpose does not have to be grand or world-changing to matter. It can be caring for family members, contributing to community, pursuing creative work, maintaining a garden, sharing skills with others, or simply trying to be a good presence in the lives of those nearby. What matters is that it feels meaningful to the individual, that it provides direction and motivation. Purpose can also change across the lifespan. What mattered in midlife may no longer resonate in later decades. Careers end. Children grow. Physical capacities change. Maintaining a sense of purpose often requires adaptation, finding new sources of meaning as old ones recede. This can be a challenge, but it is also an opportunity to discover new dimensions of life. There is also the question of psychological orientation more broadly, how one tends to interpret events and approach challenges. Some research suggests that certain orientations, such as optimism or a tendency to find meaning in difficulties, are associated with better health outcomes. These orientations can be cultivated, not by pretending difficulties do not exist, but by practicing different ways of relating to them. For someone considering their own psychological patterns, the question is whether they have sources of meaning that feel genuine. Do they look forward to certain activities or connections, Do they feel that their presence matters to others? Are there projects or relationships that give structure to days and weeks? Nurturing these sources of meaning may support health as surely as any physical practice. The integration of principles across daily life. The 9 pillars described here do not operate in isolation. They interact with one another, each influencing the others in ways that can either amplify or diminish their effects. Physical activity affects metabolic regulation, which affects inflammatory balance, which affects cognitive function. Social connection affects stress, which affects sleep, which affects everything else. Purpose affects motivation, which affects consistency in all the other domains. This interconnectedness means that improvements in one area often produce benefits in others. A person who becomes more physically active may find that they sleep better, which improves their mood, which makes social connection easier, which reduces stress, which further improves sleep. Small positive changes can create virtuous cycles that gradually shift overall trajectory. It also means that perfection in any single area is less important than reasonable consistency across multiple areas. The person who eats perfectly but never moves, who exercises vigorously but sleeps poorly, who has strong social connections but constant environmental exposures. Each of these patterns has gaps that may limit overall benefit. The goal is not excellence in one domain, but sufficiency across many. This understanding points toward a gentle, sustainable approach to health in later decades. Rather than pursuing dramatic changes or demanding regimens, one can attend to each domain in ordinary ways. Move a little more each day. Eat foods that provide genuine nourishment. Protect sleep as the foundation of recovery. Stay connected to others. Find reasons to engage with life. Reduce unnecessary burdens where practical. These are not heroic measures. They are the basics of good care, applied consistently over time. The temporal dimension. How small choices accumulate. Perhaps the most important insight from longevity research is the power of small effects multiplied across time. A single healthy meal does not change the course of health, but thousands of healthy meals, eaten over decades, create a pattern that shapes outcomes. A single walk does not transform cardiovascular function, but thousands of walks, taken year after year, maintain systems that might otherwise decline. A single good night of sleep does not determine cognitive trajectory, but thousands of nights of restorative rest support the brain's ongoing maintenance. This temporal dimension is both challenging and encouraging. It is challenging because it requires patience and consistency, because results do not appear overnight. It is encouraging because it means that perfection is not required. What matters is the overall pattern, the general tendency, the direction over time rather than the specifics of any single day. The person who eats well most of the time, who moves regularly, who maintains connections, who protects sleep, who finds meaning, this person is not doing anything extraordinary on any given day. But across decades, they are creating conditions that favor good function. They are giving their body what it needs to maintain its systems. They are reducing unnecessary burdens. They are supporting the repair processes that gradually tip the balance away from accelerated decline. This understanding also provides perspective on the inevitable variations in health that occur over time. Everyone experiences periods of difficulty, times when consistent patterns are disrupted, phases when health challenges arise. These variations are part of life, not signs of failure. The relevant question is not whether disruptions occur, but whether the overall trajectory over years and decades is in a favorable direction. Conclusion: the steady work of living well. There is no secret to longevity, no hidden knowledge that transforms the course of aging. There is only the steady work of living well, day after day, in ways that support the body's natural capacities. This work is not dramatic. It does not make for exciting headlines. but it is the foundation upon which good health in later decades is built. The principles outlined here, movement woven into daily life, metabolic stability through eating patterns, nutritional density from diverse foods, balanced inflammatory responses, circadian alignment, cognitive engagement, social integration, thoughtful environmental choices, and a sense of purpose are not prescriptions to be followed rigidly. They are areas of attention, dimensions of life that deserve consideration. Each person must find their own way of honoring these principles, their own balance that fits their circumstances and preferences. What matters is the direction of attention, noticing how the body responds to different ways of living, paying attention to energy, to mood, to function, making adjustments when patterns seem off, staying engaged with the process rather than seeking a fixed formula. This ongoing attention, this gentle curiosity about how to live well, may itself be one of the most important factors in maintaining good function over time. The years ahead will bring changes, as years always do. Capacities will shift. Circumstances will evolve. Loved ones will come and go. Through all of this, the body continues its quiet work of maintenance and repair, responding to how it is treated, adapting to the conditions it encounters. The question is not whether aging will occur. It will. The question is whether the conditions we create support the best possible function for as long as possible. That question does not have a single answer. It is answered gradually, through thousands of small choices made across thousands of days. Each choice, by itself, matters little, but the pattern they form matters greatly. And that pattern is always within reach, always accessible through the ordinary decisions of daily life. This is both the simplicity and the depth of the longevity question. It is answered not in moments of dramatic transformation, but in the steady, quiet work of living well. The years ahead will bring change, as they always do. But the quality of those years, the experience of living within them, is not determined by time alone. It is shaped by thousands of small decisions, each one seemingly insignificant, but together forming the architecture of a life. The central truth of longevity is this: the body responds to how it is treated, not in dramatic moments, but in the steady accumulation of days. If this reflection has stirred something in you, some recognition or curiosity about your own path, we would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to continue exploring the timeless principles of healthy aging, we invite you to explore other recordings in this library and to subscribe so that new wisdom finds its way to you when it becomes available. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.